The third presenter is Erin Kelly. She's the manager of Passport and Person-Directed Planning Programs at Family Services Toronto. And she's seen many creative ways that families have used Passport funding to create meaningful supports for their family members. And now she's going to discuss some of those with all of us. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here and talk about Passport. So I'm going to talk to you about a few things. Let me see how my buttons work, and then I'll be able to use it. Let's see, next button. There we go. Thanks, John.
Okay?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about 4 things. I thought I would just describe what Passport is in case anybody is less familiar with it, the kind of options that people have to manage their money once they do receive Passport, what the program actually covers in terms of funding, and some examples of how people are using their money in creative ways right now. So Passport is a ministry-funded program. It's funded by the Ministry of Community and Social Services. And really, our objectives, we have 4 of them listed up there. It's to help adults with developmental disabilities to participate in their community in whatever way that looks like for them. It's to help them learn and grow, to promote independence, and to be more involved, be more socially included. And it's also to give caregivers a break from their caregiving duties. So we talk about caregiver respite as one of the things that the program funds. Passport is a direct funding program. So when we were talking before about the different ways that government has funded things in the past, where formerly government programs funded spaces for people in a day program or in a group home or something like that, now we're funding people. And so it's a funding program that allows someone to spend a certain amount of money every year, so it's annualized money, that they can go out and purchase supports and services on their own. And when someone gets Passport funding, they can manage their money in one of 3 ways. The first one is direct funding, which is what most people in the Toronto region do. And that means that they're managing their own budget. So it's either the person who's funded or a loved one or friend is helping them to go out and buy things for themselves, and they send in receipts and invoices to us and get reimbursed. So it's much like any other expense program that someone might have used before, where things are eligible, you go out and buy them and you get your money reimbursed. The second option is to have an agency help with managing the money, which is what we call a TPA, which stands for a transfer payment agency. So what that means is if someone's going to an organization regularly and they know that they want to keep flowing some of their Passport money there, we can flow that money directly to the agency instead of the person having to pay for it and send us in the receipt. And the third is a combination. So some people want to do a little bit of both. They want to manage some of the money themselves, and they want us to flow some of the money to an agency. So once someone is selected for funding, we talk to them about not only what they might want to purchase in terms of supports and services, but how they'd want to manage their money. So what does Passport cover? Well, because we're a program that's supporting people to participate in the community, it's really individualized, but it's anything that would allow them to get out, learn new skills. There's job coaching or life skill improvement, any kind of courses, day programs, social activities. It also covers the transportation to get to and from activities, and privately hired workers. And this is where I'm going to give a couple of examples of some interesting ways that people are spending some of their Passport money, because the program can be used to fund tutors or personal support workers, people giving one-on-one lessons in different kinds of things, from music lessons to art classes. And that's where some people are really customizing some of the things that they're doing with their money. And of course, it covers camps, any kind of caregiver respite, so in the home or out of the home respite for the caregiver. It covers person-directed planning, which is also a program that's funded by the ministry, but it's also available at a fee-for-service. And so that's where someone can purchase support from an individual to help them develop a long-term plan or vision for their lives and what they want to get out and do and accomplish, and with some support on implementing that. And if someone wants, part of the funding can actually be used to broker the funds. So if someone needs to pay someone to help manage the money, if they don't want it flowing to an agency, but they need some help doing the paperwork and things like that, part of the funding can be used to help pay for that. So what doesn't it cover? A lot of these things are typically covered by either ODSP, the Ministry of Health. So anything that's specialized service, like psychiatry or counseling or social work, health assessments, assistive devices, any technical equipment, or post-secondary education that would be covered by OSAP. None of that is covered by a passport. So, getting onto our topic about creative uses, broadly speaking, we really have seen people kind of playing around and trying to customize what they do with their funding to really suit their individual person or loved one. So I say up here that, people can customize a package. You can purchase any kind of supports and services that are admissible. And I'll give you a couple of examples of that in the next slide. And in terms of our administration of the program, people can send in invoices to us at any time. So we try to be flexible in terms of reimbursing people. We try to ask people not to send in invoices more than once a month. And with some things, because it's a reimbursement program, we can pay in advance for things like booking spaces at camps or day programs. So a couple of examples, and it's great to build off of my last two co-presenters because those are some creative examples of how people got together to do things. We've had parents carpooling together, pooling to do all sorts of things actually, pooling together to hire co-tutors, to hire workers for a group of their loved ones. Giving them a little bit more autonomy about who they hire and some of the timelines or objectives of what they wanted their loved one to do or learn. We've had people lately asking if Passport can cover things like painting nights, attendance at wine clubs, even singles mingling events and dating nights. So those are social activities, so of course the program would cover that. We've got some folks who like to do annual memberships to any of the kind of services and activities in Toronto. And we know that some folks are going to those weekly or monthly, and it just becomes a regular part of their schedule. And like I said on the last slide, hiring private coaches, personal support workers, tutors, trainers. Some people are really putting together their own individual packages, hiring people to kind of create a customized schedule for themselves. So this is an interesting story that we actually just got some feedback about last month about Donald. Not his real name, but we are sharing his story with permission. He was someone who was receiving Passport funding, but was having a hard time using it. He was pretty anxious going out and wanting to try to get more involved in some social events. In particular, he likes music. And he would find that his anxiety would get the best of him in groups, particularly at parties or dances, and would often end up waiting in the car for his friends or family to go home. And at one such event, when he was struggling with some of his anxiety, he actually was hiding behind the DJ booth. And he ended up talking to the DJ and somehow got an idea about DJing. And so we got a call from his caregiver and asked if Passport could cover DJing funds or DJing as an activity. That was a new request for us, but we do cover the expense of equipment and supplies for activities. So he got funded to purchase some DJ equipment. He got a DJ one-on-one lesson, and this is something that he is now doing on a regular basis. He basically got himself a one-on-one DJ mentor, coach, and that person is supporting him to do some other DJing events. So he used his Passport funding to pay that person who had never done something like this before. That person was a DJ and hadn't done this kind of mentoring with a person before. And we were able to purchase some of the equipment for him to practice and develop his skills at home and his confidence. And that's how he's enjoying his social events now. And he's got his space around the DJ booth. And that's what's working for him. And that's an interesting example of something outside of traditional programs and services that his family hadn't thought of, and that they hadn't even been able to use the passport funds for a while until this sort of idea sparked that one evening. And so there's a quote from his mom there at the end that she's also finding that his involvement in DJing is expanding some of his horizons to get involved in other things. So that's my brief presentation, and I'm going to join my co-presenters for questions.